Volunteers 2012 spring football, and the Vols took the practice field yesterday for the first time and slated to have the orange and white game April 21st. I'm Dan Harrelson, and helping previewing the Tennessee Vols this spring is Jimmy Hyams with WNML 99.1 FM, the sports animal in Knoxville. Jimmy, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Dan. How you doing?
Pretty well. Well, let's talk about the Tennessee Vols. 7 new assistants. That's kind of unheard of in one transition year in the off season. What's the vibe with the new coaches in Knoxville?
Well, it is a lot. In fact, I don't know of any staff that's ever had 7 new coaches and the head coach stayed the same. But there's a little bit of a transition with them. There's the situation with chemistry, with terminology, with teaching these players things. Talking to a couple of veteran Tennessee players, they said it's like being a freshman all over again, as they're having to learn a different system, in particular on defense. The offensive system maintained 2 of the coaches they had a year ago, but on defense, it's all new. And so this has been something the players are having to learn. And also Tennessee is going from a 4-3 to a 3-4. They're not going exclusively to 3-4, but they're going to use it a lot more than they have in the past. So that's been new. And they've also taken 4 players and moved them to different positions. 4 guys now are playing linebacker that had not played linebacker before. 2 of them are defensive ends. One's the strong safety and one's the fullback. So there's a lot of newness with this group. Even though this is Dooley's 3rd year, with the new staff, the new defensive system, there's a lot of learning to be had this spring.
Well, it looks like 9 returning starters on each side of the football, 9 on offense, 9 on defense. Let's talk a little bit about the defense. Sal Sunseri coming from Tuscaloosa into Knoxville, replacing Wilcox, who went to Boise. He went to Boise, correct?
He went to Washington.
That's right. He came from Boise to Tennessee, and then he went to Washington.
That's correct.
9 of the returning starters, strong safety Brent Brewer, Daniel Hood at tackle, linebacker A.J. Johnson, Lanier at cornerback, Maggott at linebacker, Brian Randolph, Jaquez Smith, Marcellus Teague, and Prentice Wagner. How do you think they'll fit into this 3-4 scheme?
Well, in talking to him, they said it's been an adjustment. A.J. Johnson said he's learning just a whole different terminology and new things out there. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how they do. I thought it was intriguing that Derek Dooley said the other day that he thought there were times when Tennessee was better suited to run the 3-4 than the 4-3 a year ago. But in the 3-4, you got to have a stout nose tackle, and then you got to have a really big defensive end. You can't have a defensive end that weighs less than about 280, or it's not been playing, because he's basically playing a tackle position. And so this is an adjustment for everybody. They haven't even hit yet, so you really can't get a read on what they've done so far. They've had 2 practices without pads on, but they said it's a learning situation. They do they're kind of excited about it, and they think it's going to make them more multiple. And so I think there's going to be an advantage to that. But with so many different players in different positions on defense, even the fact that you've got 9 starters back, the fact that you're changing your defensive terminology, I think that it's going to take a while for this defense to adjust to South Missouri.
Well, we saw Georgia go through the rough times in 2010, and then 2011 they were able to win the East with switching to the 3-4 in year number 2. Can Derek Dooley afford to have a transition year after back-to-back losing seasons?
No, he can't. That's a good question. No, he can't. That's what makes this intriguing. They've got to be good right away. They can't afford to have another 500-type season. I tell you what, if he only wins 7, I wouldn't want to run the risk of that one. I think he's got to win at least 8, and then it depends on how things will fall out. But if you only win 7, I think that you might be in danger. And so they've got to be good right away. They can't afford, as you talked about, that's a good point. You can't afford to have that 1 year of adjustment like Georgia did before things kick in. You got to be ready right away. Now, Missouri brings in an assistant who is familiar with the situation, and he's got other coaches on the staff that he has known before, and so that might make the transition a little bit easier. But to your point, Tennessee needs to be good on defense right away. They can't afford a transition year in running the 3-4.
Well, do you believe Derek Dooley has Dave Hart behind comes back, Alex Bullard, Zach Fulton, some other guys, Juwan James, you name it. But the question is, can there be a running game that can be effective this season?
Well, that's the big question. Do I think in the football there won't be but maybe one other team as effective throwing the football at Tennessee, and that's going to be Arkansas. Other than that, I think Tennessee's passing game can match anybody in the league, but the running game has been suspect. Last year, Tennessee had the worst running team that it had since 1964. They have got to figure out a way to run it better. They need to get to about 140 yards a game, not 100. And so that's going to be the big challenge for this group. And whether they get there or not, I don't know. That remains to be seen whether they can improve that much. But I think the offensive line is going to be much better. The running backs, I don't know if they're going to be any better than what they had a year ago with Tarnpool. But I also think that Tennessee probably did not emphasize the run game enough last year and last spring. It wasn't. They didn't dedicate themselves to it. They didn't get in there in the spring and really hammer it out. That's the focal point of the spring, is improving the run game. And I'll say this too: the quarterback's got to be dedicated in that regard too. He's got to do a better job of checking off at the line and making sure that he's calling the right run play to help the running game. So it's just a combination of a lot of things. But first and foremost, it starts with that offensive line getting better.
Well, do you think Tyler Bray can make those adjustments and going into year number 3 for him to start making those checkoffs and start being a leader for this volunteer offense?
I do. And I've heard good reports about him in that direction. But he has got to get better at that. And it's a matter of getting in the film room and studying and being dedicated to being a complete quarterback, being committed to being a complete quarterback. And he knows that that's the role that he has to play. And he has shown, from what we're told, he's shown more leadership this spring and in taking over ownership of his position. And that's going to be very critical for Tennessee. Look, people judge quarterbacks differently, and some people might say, well, he's doing for 300 a game. That's not the only way I judge a quarterback. I judge it based on how does he do in managing his team, how does he do in making the right checks, how does he do in winning against good competition. That, to me, is the best measuring stick of a quarterback, and how many yards he's throwing per game. And Bray, really, the best team he's beaten so far is Cincinnati. He has got to start recording some wins against some good SEC teams, in my opinion, to be considered one of the better quarterbacks in the league.
Well, do you think the potential can be there? Because obviously Lane Kiffin recruited this guy, and we all know that what Lane Kiffin can do with quarterbacks. It just seems like there's a promising upside for Tyler Bray. Do you think he misses Lane Kiffin, or do you think the coaching ability is not there on the quarterback and with quarterback coaches and even with Jim Chaney?
No, I think it's there. I think it's a matter of the player being committed. I think that's what's been missing. And he's got to get committed. I think the coaching staff over there is certainly good enough to get it done. And to me, the ball is in his court. But again, it's up to him. And I think that he's ready to take that step. But only time will tell.
Well, speaking of other assistant coaches, Jay Graham comes in as the running backs coach. Of course, we all know him as a great volunteer running back throughout his playing days collegiately. And also talk about Graham coming in, and also T. Martin. Of course, he's at USC as a wide receivers coach under Lane Kiffin. A lot of people were kind of upset that Derek Dooley did not give him a look at being an assistant coach in Knoxville.
Yeah, on Jay Graham, he was an outstanding running back in Tennessee. He played at Tennessee during the middle of Tennessee's heyday in the 1990s. He was a 1,000-yard rusher. He had 2 huge runs to help beat Alabama during his time here. Then he went on to become an assistant at a variety of stops, most recently with South Carolina, where he did a really good job before Tennessee hired him. I think that was the home run for Tennessee to get Jay Graham back here. So I think he'll do an outstanding job. As far as the T. Martin situation, I was surprised at that. Tennessee, Derek Dooley talked to T. Martin a couple of years ago, and there was an agreement that he was just going to stay in Kentucky. There was never an offer made. They just had a conversation. And this time around, he said he didn't talk to Tennessee at all. And Derek Dooley took some flack around here from some people about why didn't you go pursue this former Tennessee football player who, oh, by the way, ends up on Lane Kiffin's staff at Southern Cal. So that was the thing that Dooley did was he took Darren Henshaw and moved him from quarterbacks to receivers after Charlie Baggett's forced retirement, and didn't really give T. Martin a look because Dooley already knew what he wanted to do at receiver. And again, that didn't fit well with some of the Tennessee fans. So, but you're not going to please everybody.
Well, I guess one last thing, on that one Saturday a week after everybody else pretty much goes on the 14th?
No, I don't really think exposure is the key element here. I think what happened was he does not like to start spring and then have spring break and then start spring again. He doesn't like. He moved the start of practice back, and in moving the start of practice back, therefore he had to move the spring game back a week. So it is only by a week, and they get 15 days. So it was more about that than exposure. Now some coaches have the philosophy of start spring earlier, so if you have an injury, there's more time to recover. But Billy's approach was, I don't want it interrupted by spring break, so let's go ahead and get it started later. I don't have an opinion either way, whether that's good or bad. It's just the way he elected to do it.
Well, Jimmy, so you think 8 wins is a possibility this fall for Tennessee?
Oh, yeah, I do. I think the talent's there. One thing Derek Dooley's done very well is replenish the roster. This is a much better roster than the one he inherited. There was attrition from Fulmer's departure. There was attrition from Kiffin's departure. And so Tennessee was left with pretty much a gutted roster. But now when I look at the talent level, it's pretty good. Now, it's not at the level of Alabama or LSU, but it's pretty good. It's good enough to win 8 games. And they should, I think they can and probably should be able to do that. The start's going to be critical. They really need to beat NC State. But if they get off to a good start, beat NC State in week 1 and then Florida in week 3, I think they'll go on to have a solid season.
Well, I know everybody wants to see Tennessee, back in the top 15, top team like they were in all the 90s and even the early part of the 2000s. So it's good for the league and it's good for college football to see the Big Orange back up there. And if the offense stays in stride, that they have a great shot in competing not only in probably the SEC East, but if they can put some pieces together, who knows what can happen.
You never know. We've seen some teams come out of nowhere, like Auburn a few years ago with Cam Newton, but you never know about this deal. But if you get a good start, get some momentum, and get some confidence, there's no telling what you can accomplish.
Well, Jimmy, thank you for taking a few minutes out of your day today, and I'm sure we'll